I'm live. Hi there. Bienvenidos a Mexico. Happy Sunday to everyone. It's lovely to have you here. Now, last year, I tried to do a tour here and I had reception issues. So I'm giving it a go again, and hopefully it's going to work because it's a very interesting area. I'm just down from the Anthropological Museum. My group are in there right now. It's one of the world's great museums. But I am here in Mexico City, of course. It's Sunday, not Sunday everywhere, but Sunday in this part of the world is really neat because they close the main streets and everyone goes out jogging and biking and rollerblading and all that sort of thing. So it's really neat. So I'm over by the Tamayo Museum here, who's a sculptor, a Mexican sculptor. So there's a lot to see in around here. So I wanted to just share this with everyone. Say I've honestly, hola, hola, hey Michelle, hola amiga. Hi Nicole, nice to see you here. Yeah, so I'm in Mexico City and it actually rained a little bit. This is the first time in my life I've ever felt rain fall out of the sky. But so I'm over by the museum, the Tamayo Museum. So now you'll see the big buildings. Now we had an earthquake last night. It was a 6.2, and I was hi Jay. I was woken up by someone in my group phoning me, and I could see that the lights were swaying on the roof. So all these buildings, this is the big Ritz-Carlton Hotel, they're all built for earthquakes. So as many of you know, I come back here every year. Now I was in Mexico City last January. So this year, because I have a bunch of people from Europe on this particular trip, so I decided to start the trip here. But tomorrow we are flying down to Oaxaca, which of course is about my favorite place in the whole wide world. And that's a big thing to say. See all this public art out here? But I am in Chapultepec. And Chapultepec, we call them sort of the lungs of Mexico City. Now, lots of interesting Mexican history that goes on throughout this area. But let me just put Mexico City in some perspective for people to understand. First of all, friendly, safe. Don't believe all the stories you hear. It's a wonderful place, but it's huge. The fact that it's been windy and kind of rainy is actually good news because the air is cleaner than it often is. I do struggle here sometimes if 3 or 4 days. I'm up at 2,300 meters, about 7,400 feet above sea level. Of course, this was the Aztec capital, Teotihuacan, and that was a floating city, kind of a Venice style, as one says, as one of the obvious kind of parallels. But if you go back to the 1960s, there was about 1 million people here. In 1968, they hosted, of course, the Summer Olympics. They broke all the records because of high elevation. Now, if you Google Mexico, it's going to tell you it's about 15 million people. But if you draw a ring around the area of Mexico City, there's about 30 million people here. So it is a massive city, and there's smoking volcanoes and there's water issues. But, incredibly broad and diverse city. This afternoon, I'm going to wander down to the main square, the Zocalo, because the president is coming out. And how much do I respect the Mexicans? They elected a Jewish woman as president of a Catholic country. Pretty amazing. And I just have a huge amount of respect for her. So if I manage to actually see her this afternoon, that will be a real treat. Now, again, this kind of climate here, we're technically in the tropics, but because of the higher elevation, it's a pretty moderate climate. You'll see all the people out biking and jogging on a Sunday. It's such a lovely place to be. So it took, with my group this morning, it took us an hour to walk from the hotel to the park here. And if you saw it on a map, this is like less than a centimeter. That's how massive this city is. But up in the distance, there's a hill up there, and that's where the governors, the Spanish governors, because of course there were 2 main viceroyalties in the Americas under Spanish colonial rule, Lima to the south and Mexico City to the north. And of course, it was all about extracting wealth. Mexico, like most of the other region, becomes independent between 1810 and 1821. So we walked past the Independence Monument, the famous angel up on the gold statue. See everybody out jogging and doing all their Sunday activities. It's really lovely. So they have the Modern Art Museum in here and the National Museum of History. But when we start to talk about the history of Mexico, often people are unaware that there was actually a Mexican empire for a period of time. So Maximilian, the French basically invaded Mexico in the 1860s, and they took a Saxon king, Maximilian, and they made him the Emperor of Mexico. That lasted all of 4 years, but he actually lived over here in this park as well. And his house is up on the hill up in the distance here. See everybody out biking. They really run this extremely well. It's a neat thing to do. And this is all about the Tamayo Museum. And of course, there's lots of yummy food around. So it's a pretty neat place. I feel very safe in Mexico City, and hola. It's, I think, you know, there is, of course, it's not that Mexico doesn't have problems. There's a lot of poverty here and that sort of thing. But when you're in the center, you don't feel it. You feel safe as can be. There's a little person bringing her bicycle up. So I think I'm going to try and cross over. I want to take you and show you a monument. I really wanted to show you the outside of the Anthropological Museum, but I was really not holding any of my reception there. So as a result of that, I walked away from it. But the monument, the Mexican-American War, was all being worked on last year, and it's all looking fresh and beautiful. So I thought I might share that. Here I am wandering across. So you see, this is Insurgents, this main street here. And it literally, the hotel I'm staying in, the Barcelo, which I really like, is about 2 kilometers, maybe 3 from here. We have all these parklands through here. And there's lots to see, but these are really the lungs of this massive, massive city. So El Castillo de Chapultepec, the castle of Chapultepec, which is now a museum. There we go. So we can cross over. So I'll take you for... Now, I've turned my Wi-Fi off, and I was thinking that was one of the problems I had last year, because I think it was trying to latch on to the public Wi-Fi. So maybe someone could drop a note in our group. I want to just show you this into the subscriber group and say that we're live right now. Look at the dancing. It's such a neat city. Now, I couldn't live in Mexico City. I have to be very honest with myself. It's just so big. You know, there's just so much population and quite a lot of pollution here. Cheers from Florida. Hi there. Oh, it's nice to see you here, Diane. Well, nice. I don't know if it's still cold down there. I know that the U.S., in fact, one of my couples on this tour, hola, oye, Solange, oye, desde Chile, un abrazo. Estoy en la Ciudad de México aquí. Mi grupo está en el Museo de Antropología. So one of my couples are from Colorado Springs, and their flight got canceled. So they ended up just flying in last night. They were meant to be the day before, but because of snow in Dallas, where they were flying through. So lovely to have friends from around the world. Yes, well, at home, 46 in Florida. So here right now, it is probably about 18 degrees Celsius, which is about 60, 62. You know, which is pretty nice, but it's always a mild climate here. And look at all the flowers all over the place. But I'm going to take you over just to get a sense of the view. Now, this is where people come out here, of course, on a Sunday, and they come out to the museums and they come out to the parks. So going to the Anthropological Museum costs 100 pesos, which is exactly $5 US. But you'll notice here, cuida el bosque, take care of the forest. And you'll see Chapultepec, you've got a cricket up in the corner that it refers to, but up top on the hill now is a museum. But that was the governor's palace, and that's where Maximilian lived for the short-lived 4 years of the empire. Oh, it's cold there too. At home, I think it's right on about freezing at home, but of course I live in the Canadian Rockies, so I live in a place that's meant to be cold. We have 8 months of snow where I live. Now, they do have a zoo in here. But there's about 5 different museums all through here. There's a modern art museum, and it's been closed the last few years, but I think it's open now. So I'm almost a little tempted to go in there. And if you want to come to Mexico and see whoever that is, and there's a kangaroo, which is kind of fun. But I want to just take you over one of the main roads, one of the arterial routes that come through Mexico City. Now, if the president is out, if I manage to see her this afternoon, then I'll try and go live because it would just be such a neat thing. So we're going to wander down and enjoy that this afternoon. But there you start to see the big Art Deco monument to the Mexican War. Is it the Thomas Museum? This is the modern art one. The Tamayo was the one that I walked past before, and this is all part of the modern art museum. So if maybe it's got another name that I'm unaware of. Of course, they have this little train here for taking the kids around. And got your Valentina sauce over on the side. So people are out biking and exercising, very typical of a Sunday. So I have my wallet in my front pocket. But aside from that, I'm not the least bit worried for my own safety here ever. Now, say tomorrow we're flying down to Oaxaca. You could drive down there in about 5.5 hours, but we're flying down. And when I fly down there, it's about an hour and 10 minutes. The city of Oaxaca is one of my favorite cities in the whole wide world, and deeply cultural. Of course, the state of Oaxaca is the most indigenous state in all of Mexico. About 50% of the population speak an indigenous language. There's 14 languages spoken down there. Now, as the group is going through the anthropological museum, I gave them a few highlights to try and see, because you just can't do the whole thing. They're going to go and spend, I usually last about 2 hours in that museum before I get a little worn out. But yeah, this monument was all under construction last year. So 1846, 1847, that's when the United States, of course, took Texas. And of course, as I often repeat, I think the mark of a successful society is where you're not just seeing war memorials. And so it's so nice to see other art. And there's all sorts of things you can see up in the hill there. It's now, of course, a museum. But I'll take you around. They actually had a whole exhibit on the Veracruz area. Oh, do you see the masks? That's for lucha libre, for the wrestling. So that is, of course, a very fun thing. I actually am Facebook friends with a guy who is actually a wrestler here in Mexico City, which is pretty cool. Met him a few years ago. And here is this monument for the defenses of the nation. And this was all fenced off last year as they were doing some reforms on it. So a dramatic monument, of course, but tragic history. And of course, some very complicated history happening now with Mexico's northern border, which is, of course, a very heavy thing, and Canada's southern border as well. We're all feeling quite at risk, quite assaulted at the moment, which is a scary thing for all of us. But here, there's a strong sense of human rights. Look at all the people wandering over. So we're over one of the big arterial routes down below us. But as we wander over here, you come up to the original gates of this whole park area. Yes, yeah. No, it's a very scary time for people, well, around the world at the moment, to be honest, but certainly in our part of the world. And of course, I have many close Mexican friends, and it's not that, I don't see the challenges and the problems in this society, but it must be very, very tiring for the poor Mexicans to be accused of everything evil all the time. And I think it's very surprising for people when they do come here. They're always told how dangerous this country is. Well, it isn't. I mean, and for all the years I've traveled to Mexico, throughout this entire country, I've never had a negative personal experience. But then I don't go out and look for the negative things. So that makes a big difference. Now, you'll see that they've got the lions here. Very regal for a park with the old sign of the zoo. But it's really neat. Last year, there was a different photo history along this section here. But look, it's Sunday. Now, way down in front of me, that's actually the Monument to Independence. And that's the whole process of independence. But this is all about Veracruz. So Veracruz was, of course, the kind of the colonial port under Spanish rule. Very, very hot city. But to get from here to Veracruz, you can climb right up to nearly 6,000 meters, 20,000 feet. So you see that coast? That looks like a giant ceiba tree to me, actually. And the ceiba tree is the national tree of Guatemala, but they're amazing. When they're young, they grow spines on the outside to protect them, and as they get bigger, then they live forever. And here's toucans. Have a look at this. Isn't it fabulous? See these toucans here? It's gorgeous birds. There's just such wonderful biodiversity. Although where I'm going to be down in Oaxaca, of course, it's the dry season right now. Daytime temperatures, I wake up in the morning and it's about 10 degrees Celsius. In the afternoon, about 25, and not a cloud in the sky. Now, to get to Veracruz is the other side of the mountains from Oaxaca, but it's much wetter, as you can see. So this is all Gulf through here. And, of course, you see the cactuses as well. I'm going to be hanging out with beautiful saguaro cactuses. There's someone ringing her bell as she goes through, making a racket. But all the fountains are up and running. So I don't actually know why the president's coming out this afternoon, but I'm looking forward to that. Look at these bees. Isn't that fabulous? I think it was on this side. Yeah, here you get a sense. Have a look at this now. So this, you get the huge mountains right up to nearly 6,000 meters, these big volcanoes that you have in Mexico. So these images are over from this side. There's the Veracruz side and the Gulf of Mexico, right there. And then you come over here to see volcanoes all around us. In fact, from my hotel window, I can see smoking volcanoes. So it's pretty amazing. So I think this comes as a surprise to people very often, just how big and modern this city is. Of course, say we had an earthquake last night. It was apparently the epicenter was down by the coast. They had a huge one way back in 1985. So I mean, it's there's a lot more to the city than people often think. And the young people having a nice day out and about. So yeah, I just wanted to come and share a little bit of this. And I'm gradually getting a little hungry. And when you're in Mexico City, of course, what you can eat, of course, are tacos. Because, hey, that's tacos actually come from here. Now, this was, of course, the Aztec capital. It is believed that pre-conquest, Mexico was about 20 million people. Of course, when I head down to Oaxaca, I will be by Monte Alban. I won't be able to do a live there because I get virtually no reception at that site. But that's the oldest planned city in the Americas. And that's where the famous ball game came from. But here's a city of 30 million people. You can probably hear the traffic down below me. Oh, these guys have nice bikes. Good for them. I'm going to check here. See, Mexico's got such incredible biodiversity as well. And really very good infrastructure. The flights are excellent. I like the, Aero Mexico, I think, is a good airline. So it's really fun. So tell me where everyone is from in the world. I just wanted to do a little live. Yesterday, I wish that I had my gimbal with me because I would have shown you the main square. But I'll do that maybe later today. I want to wander up to the main square itself and see everyone out jogging. Doesn't that look just idyllic? Paisaje marino. Conjunto de Colonia Coral. That's, coral reef down there out in the Gulf itself. Of course, they have huge petroleum extraction in the Gulf of Mexico, which is a huge part of the Mexican economy as well, which is pretty neat. So once everyone is done in the museum, then we're going to take taxis back to the hotel, put our feet up for a while, and then wander down to the main square. And tomorrow morning, we will zip out to the airport for the beautiful flight down to the city of Oaxaca, which is always a treat. But have a look at that big monument up here. Really neat to see. This is what people do on a Sunday. People do work hard here, and they really do. I mean, it's in a country where, I don't know what the official statistic is now. It's about 20% real poverty. Life is getting better. And of course, the government here has been clearing out as much corruption as they possibly can. Interestingly enough, one of the few negative experiences I ever had here 2 years ago, I was giving a walking tour here in Mexico City, and a couple of people in my group drank a beer, and the police pulled them over and said that they were going to jail for doing it, even though it wasn't an illegal thing they were doing. And we had to give the police $100. And now the city police are pretty much cleared out. They've brought on special police, and I mean, they're making a real effort. And at the Opera House, just it had signs about how you can make a declaration if you encounter corruption. So that's a pretty significant thing. So it's not that I don't want to acknowledge those elements of society here as well, because it is part of it. But for the most part, I find Mexico just such an easy, friendly place to travel in. Find so many kind, fun people. So it is awfully neat. Like to see everyone out jogging as well this morning. It's fun to see them out doing all of that. Oh, hey, from Inverness, it's so nice to see you here. Now I think everyone in Europe is just freezing at the moment. I think I saw that northern England was like minus 15, and they said the mountains in Scotland were getting to minus 20. So I tell you what, Ali, I think next year you should come down here, because I come here every January. So this is my annual event. I don't necessarily come to Mexico City every time, but I always go to Oaxaca because, well, it's just one of my favorite places in the world. And of course, it's the center of Mexican food as well. See, these are all homemade potato chips that they make here. And you squeeze a little bit of lime onto them. I just want to come and show you all the bird species. Let's talk about all the biodiversity out here. So it's nice to have everyone joining in. Feel free to share some of these videos. But yeah, I think, it's interesting it's on this particular trip, I have 3 people from the States, I have a few from Canada, and then I have people from Ireland and the UK. And it's a long trip to get over here from London, of course, just because it's a long way away. But, it's a major airport here. And but I do think so often people only think of Mexico as the all-inclusive resorts. And it's important to look at the squirrels running up and down the trees out here. So here's the chapulín. So these chapulines, by the way, these crickets, I will be eating those in the next few days when I'm down in Oaxaca. The squirrels are having a grand old time up on the tree here. Oh, they're having words with the birds. They are. They're fun. So, Pro Bosque Chapultepec. So, colibri, which is hummingbirds. See, there's so many varieties. Of course, you have just wonderful biodiversity throughout this part of the world all the time. I don't think those birds really like Coca-Cola. I don't think. The frogs, rana. Yeah, oh, look at this little guy here. Yeah, Caco Mixtle. So, yeah, there's so much to see and do. Basically, there's a line as well across central Mexico. When you go north of here, you got to Guanajuato, which is where the enslaved people rose up and liberated themselves. They have a fabulous statue. Look at this squirrel right here. But the big mines up to the north, and then the south of the country is much more indigenous. There's a black squirrel. The squirrels are having a grand old time today. I think they're enjoying their Sunday out. Oh, these kind of beetles are super strong. They carry something like 20 times their own weight or something. Isn't that fabulous? Yeah. All right. Oh, and there's the little train going by. See oh, it's just fun to come down here. So this is why it's such a great place to come on a Sunday when you're here. So it's nice to see. They have owls here as well. Look at that, beautiful. So I am going to get myself a little food, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Sunday afternoon or evening wherever you are in the world. But put Mexico high on your list, and really do. There's just so much to see here and so much to share, and it's fun and safe and friendly and good value. And if you like spicy food, very spicy. Hi, Lorraine, it's nice to see you. So. But anyway, I'm going to go get a little food and I'm going to meet my group. And I am going to then, make the most of the day and head down to Oaxaca tomorrow. So peace and love, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, see my hands, by the way? It's a climbing accident. So they're getting better, but a little bit sore. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it's funny, too, when you say that with the spicy food. It's like the Valentina sauce you have on a table here, the way North Americans would have ketchup on theirs. So it's kind of fun. But yeah, you can have. I did actually have a pepper the other day that was really spicy but delicious. It was yummy. So, and staying at the hotel, they've got a really nice gym, and it's nice to work out at altitude. And of course, for my friends who live at sea level, they felt the walk a little bit more. Of course, I'm not much higher than where I live here. So it's quite easy for those of us who live at altitude. But yeah, so it's time for a little bit of food. So thank you, everyone. Hi from the Ukraine. Hi there. So nice to connect. Of course, I live in the province of Alberta in Canada, which has a very large Ukrainian population. So a lot of support for Ukraine, of course. In Edmonton, we jokingly call it Edmundchuk because so many surnames have Ukrainian names to them. So it's nice to have you connect. Well, welcome to Mexico City. And Happy New Year to everyone. So do watch. I will do some live tours when I'm down in beautiful Oaxaca. And I land there tomorrow just after 11 a.m. All right, ladies and gentlemen. The rocks. Yeah, it was actually the... Thanks for connecting. All right, everyone. Big hugs to all of you. Thanks for your friendship and support and your donations. And I will see you all probably tomorrow or the next day in Oaxaca, but maybe this afternoon if I can actually get a film of the president coming out in the main square. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.